Smart to chew on. The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Wednesday, the 6th of November, 2024. This is program number 1277, and I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Well, of course, it's a very interesting day, and it's definitely as many are waking up to the news of the U.S. politics and the return to Donald Trump. We'll be speaking about that in a little while here on the Lunchroom, but before that, in fact, we're going to be speaking about medical matter. A number of people who know would remember the whole idea of bilharzia. We're going to speak about that, in fact, in just a bit with a representative of the Ministry of Health. But first, of course, just a reminder, if you obviously might be listening to us on 101.1 FM radio, but you can also check us out on our website, rcistlucia.com. And we're also streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And please be sure to like and share that as well with your friends and family. A bit of history for today. Back in the year 1830, the Congress of Chilpancingo declared Mexico independent from Spain. 1860, on this day, saw Republican Abraham Lincoln of Illinois being elected the 16th president of the United States of America. 1913, on this day, Mahatma Gandhi was arrested for leading an Indian miners' march in South Africa. 1917, on this day, November the 6th, saw the Bolshevik revolution beginning with the bombardment of what was the Winter Palace in Petrograd during the Russian October Revolution. And in 1978, on this day, the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, placed the country under military rule, allowing General Gholam Reza Azari to form a government. We now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought to you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One test for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need test for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big test with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+, need all kind of tests. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gas and vanity. Boss, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Lance Road in Castries, Bosses Grizzly Lakes, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Now, I know a lot of individuals out there are a lot more interested in that conversation regarding the matter of United States politics in terms of what just occurred yesterday, the 5th of November. But we're going to have to put that on pause for a little while because we do have an initiative being implemented by the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and Elderly Affairs, and that is a national survey on schistosomiasis, which a lot of other people may know as bilharzia, and that word has perhaps even been forgotten by or not even known by the younger generation, because it certainly has not been a thing in St. Lucia for some time. And to tell us about why this is happening at this point, I'm so very pleased to have in studio with us the Medical Surveillance Officer at the Ministry of Health, the Department of Health, Dr. Dana Da Costa Gomez. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for having me.
Now, of course, this idea of schistosomiasis, perhaps not even pronouncing it properly, or bilharzia, as it is very commonly being known. What is that exactly? Because I know for perhaps the older generation, they would have been a lot more familiar with the matter of bilharzia, but for younger persons, not so very much.
Okay. So bilharzia is basically, or schisto, as we call it for short, is basically a parasitic infection, and it is acquired from persons who wade in contaminated waters. If the waters are contaminated, for example, the ravines, the streams, rivers. So persons who, even farmers who farm in the dashing farms, because it's kind of the land is soggy, then they can acquire bilharzia through those methods. The parasite basically lives in a snail, which has been identified in certain areas in St. Lucia. And that snail, when the parasites gets into the water, anybody who's swimming in that water can become infected by the parasite that comes out of the snail. So that the disease basically has a life cycle, which goes from the eggs, which are excreted through the stool or the urine of a human being, and then it infects the snail. The snail wades into the waters, and then the parasite is released, and it enters another human being through the skin.
Now, you mentioned, of course, it's found in water. Are we speaking principally about freshwater?
Yes, freshwater. It's a freshwater snail. That is the vector, just like the vector for dengue is the Aedes aegypti mosquito. Similarly, the vector for schistosomiasis is a particular snail, which we call, well, the scientific term is very long, but the last name is labrata.
Labrata.
Yes.
And then lots of people maybe wondering about a lab rat, but interestingly enough. So these snails, as you said, they're found in rivers, they're found in ravines, they're found in ponds, any form of fresh water. Yeah. Potentially as well, if you've got a barrel of water, is that something that you can find itself into that?
No. It's just the fresh waters, running waters, ravines. And
so natural flowing water, streams, rivers, that type of space. So is it harmful, bilharzia?
Well, yes. Previous to 1965, the percentage or the incidence was very high, especially in school children. It was up to 91% of school children were
91% prior to 1965.
Yes, between 45 to 91% of school children were affected or infected with bilharzia. Then there was the Rockefeller Foundation that came into St. Lucia between 1965 to 1981, and there was treatment in terms of improved sanitation, the flushing toilets, no longer the pit latrine, hygiene increased, and there was also treatment in terms of drugs for persons who were infected.
Sorry about that. Is there a correlation between water being polluted, contaminated, having high amounts of fecal matter, and the presence of bilharzia?
Yes, because the eggs are released in the feces. The feces and the urine of persons who are infected release the eggs, and these then go on into the rivers, and that's where the entire cycle starts.
So we were just actually speaking about the impact of it on the human body. It gets into you.
Yes.
And what would end up happening?
It can affect many organs, including the brain. In children, it has been known to cause poor growth and poor development, and even mental regression, poor development mentally. So this is one of the reasons why we're having the survey this year.
And was it something that would be very easily identified? I mean, would you see any sort of external marks or rashes?
Yes, there is. When the parasite enters the skin, there is a mark, like a rash, that is left on the skin, which is the point of entry. And then you could also have cough, diarrhea. Some individuals would have, it would affect the liver. So the abdomen would be swollen, and the other complications which I explained in terms of the poor growth and the mental issues.
Now, as you mentioned that, of course, you were saying it back in 1965, up to 90% of the population, 9 out of 10 children actually had bilharzia. I suppose it is not necessarily a death sentence in that regard.
No, because there's treatment for it. So once you have been diagnosed, the necessary tests have been done, and you have a confirmation that that's what it is, there is treatment, and it is curable.
So St. Lucia still has bilharzia? Is this still, I think, because as you mentioned, of course, lots of people have been familiar with the work of the past, the Rockefeller Foundation on the Morn, and all this treatment. And you would have heard in the past people say that bilharzia has been eradicated from St. Lucia. Is it still something that somebody might potentially get going out and bathing in a river or at a waterfall or whatnot?
Well, the vector has been identified on island. We've had 2 surveys prior to this one that we're looking to conduct. The first one was done in school-age children. The second one was done in 2017, we had the first school survey. In 2022, we had the snail survey, where we identified the vector, as I spoke of earlier. None of those vectors were identified as having the parasite. Yeah. So the last time
so you've identified the vector, but not
Yes.
necessarily the actual parasite of bilharzia within the snails.
Right, within the snails. So the last documented infection that we have is from 2014. Yeah. The last documented infection within a child is in the 2010.
So you've actually had
documented
cases.
Yes.
But only just one over the past 14 years or so, you're saying?
Yes.
And was that in a particular area? Obviously you don't want to mean necessarily identified, but
well, yes, it would have to be identified in a particular area, but we don't want.
You don't want to actually state exactly where it is. Okay. So this study that you're doing right about now, how is it actually going to impact the country? How is it going to benefit the country?
So we're looking to verify. We are assuming that we don't have any infections in country, but we're looking basically to confirm that we don't have, or to have that documented that we don't have. We have eliminated bilharzia in our country. If we were able to show that, then we would be the first country within the CARICOM to eliminate schistosomiasis. This is very important because when you have persons going to a website looking about St. Lucia, this would be one of the parameters that would be on there. The same way that persons call our department, because I work in the EPI unit of the Ministry of Health. Persons do call to find out when was the last case of Zika that we have, how prevalent is dengue. All of these information persons are tourists, visitors to the island, would like to know about that.
Okay, so I thought originally that we had actually eliminated bilharzia in the past. So is it something that has come back? Is it, how is that that definition of elimination or interruption understood?
The interruption means that we don't have any active transmission. So that we don't have any active cases. So this is what we're trying to prove.
Okay.
Or to document.
So this would be something that you would have to be doing.
Yes.
Regular. When I say regularly, maybe every 5 years, or is it something that you?
Well, in
monitor?
addition, sorry.
Yeah. No. I just want to understand in terms of is it a requirement that we have to go through this maybe every 5 years or over a period of time?
No. So we have to do this survey, because the reason we do it in school children, because school children, it shows if we do find an infection in a school child, it means that there is active transmission of the disease. In addition to the school survey, we also have to do a survey within the population at risk, which would be the farmers, of course, because they're the ones that do the planting and stuff. And we would also have to show that from 2014 to now, we haven't had any documented infections. So we are assuming that we don't have any, because we have, so far, from what we've done from the surveys, the first survey, we did not find any child who was infected. The snails have not shown that there is any of the parasites present, but we need to document that and to show that this is the case for St. Lucia.
Now, is it something that can actually be passed from person to person, human contact?
No,
so this has to be some interaction with the snail or water that this snail is actually living in, and so that you can actually get okay.
Yes.
So if you do find through this survey that you're doing a case of bilharzia, what then? What do you do? What's the process?
So any case that has been deemed positive or confirmed positive, there is treatment available for that particular child or individual at one of our nearest health centers or within the ministry. Since this disease has posed a public health, is of public health concern.
So this survey, when is it going to be running? Is it already happening? And how are you going to go around actually selecting these children to be participants?
Okay, so the survey will be occurring at the 62 primary schools. It's the children ages 8 to 11, grades 3 to 6. The children have been selected randomly, so it's not that we're targeting any particular child. There are a number of students, and there's a random selection. And we will be going out to the schools. There will be teams assigned, and we will be going out to the schools to do the testing on the students, which will be a finger prick, a blood, just a small prick, and we put the spots on a piece of paper, which we call filter paper, for testing. Prior to that, we have been doing the sensitization of the schools, including the principals, and we hope to meet with the parents of the students to inform them, and to allay any fears they might have and any concerns as to why was the child chosen, what does it entail, and parents will always have concerns when it comes to a procedure that it's not invasive, but it is a prick. Even persons would check their blood sugars, there.
What kind of sample size are we speaking about? I know you mentioned 62 schools, but
we're looking at over 2,000 students for testing.
Okay, so that's a pretty large sample
yes,
all across the island.
Yes, because it is 62 primary schools that we're going to.
And so, I mean, just in terms of individuals be wondering, well, why them? Obviously, as you rightly said, it's going to be a random test, and of course, parental consent will be required.
Yes, so we have sent. We're in the process of disseminating a fact sheet plus the consent forms for the parents. But like I said, we want to. We're also organizing parent-teacher conferences to meet with the parents of the students who've been selected for the survey, so that we can have a discussion with them and to allay any concerns that they might have and to answer them.
So in addition to the blood sample, I suppose you'll also be collecting some information about the practices and behaviors?
Yes. In addition to that, there will be a questionnaire so that we can know what practices in terms of hygiene practices the children have at home.
Well, as well, I suppose if you are getting any positive cases at all, you would then be looking to see, well, where that child may have been. Is that also going to be part of the approach in terms of dealing with the vectors themselves?
Yes. Well, since it's a notifiable disease, under our notifiable diseases, just like dengue, Zika, we would do what we call a case investigation on that child, where we would have do a questionnaire, certain questions to the child and the parent to find out about their surroundings and their practices and how the infection may have been acquired.
Now, of course, you know how sometimes children can be, and then they find out, well, I'm the one that's being picked in my class, and why me? Is there something wrong with me? How do you communicate that, not just to the student themselves, but to their peers, the rest of the classroom?
That is one of the reasons why we haven't. Well, first we spoke with the teachers, not the teachers, the principals, but the district education officers first, then the principals, so that the information would be disseminated. That way we know that one of the ways of reaching parents and students is through their teachers and principals. And that is another reason why we also want to reach out to the teachers and most importantly the parents, because if there's a go ahead, a green light from the parents, of course the student would be more willing to do the test and to consent to the test. Because on the day of testing, there is also the assent form where the student has to say that they're willing to do the test. If they're not willing, it's totally voluntary. So if that student or the parent is not willing, the child will be removed from the survey with no consequence whatsoever.
And then you'll have to pick somebody else at some point, I suppose.
No.
No, you don't.
No.
I thought maybe to try to keep the sample size the same in that instance. So it's, of course, pretty important for St. Lucia to be declared bilharzia free, and I suppose this is somewhat of a validation of what of the work that has been done over the years in this regard. I do notice that somebody is already trying to call in on this matter. Let's just see if it's actually a call regarding this this matter of this bilharzia survey, national survey being done in St. Lucia. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Yes, go ahead, caller. We're hearing you very clearly.
And I think during that project, lots of laundries and public toilets were erected in different parts of St. Lucia to get people to move away from the rivers. Because in the old days, in the early years in St. Lucia, people...
Caller, I think you might have your speaker. Oh, okay, this is on our side. Sorry about that. Sure. Go right ahead, caller. Yes, we're hearing you now. No, I think we got you. You were talking about the construction of laundries and toilets around St. Lucia to try to prevent individuals from going to the rivers. Yeah, you're very correct about that, and a considerable amount of investment in terms of trying to improve sanitation in various places. Although we still do have some difficulties in some communities and villages where you don't actually have wastewater treatment or anything of the sort. So that's still an issue in some places. But in terms of, yes, the using of the rivers for washing, that certainly has decreased tremendously in St. Lucia over the years.
So you're coming out of I think coming out of the installation of those public toilet and laundries, you really can refer to them as the freeness.
Yes, that.
I think so. I recall that under that research and control project, they also distributed lots of hand-operated portable washing machines. So a lot of places people didn't have electric washing machines. So you had those plastic washing machines that are latched up, and you had some kind of agitator mechanism that you operated by pushing up and down. And that was quite common back in the 70s.
Yes, indeed. Thanks very, very much for that walk down the past, caller, and a reminder of perhaps how far we've come as a society. I think in the last census, I was trying to pull it up right now, but the figures in terms of running water at home is pretty high, and as well, even the ownership of washing machines in houses as well, in households. Is a pretty high figure. Once we get the figure, I'll try to share it in a bit. But very interesting points that you're making, though, of course, in terms of trying to prevent individuals from getting into those environments where you may actually have bilharzia. Right. Thanks for that, caller.
And just to mention, even with the farmers, we do encourage the use of their PPEs, which is the boots and the gloves when they're doing the farm, and all of this prevents you from acquiring the infection as well. Yeah.
Is there? In my thinking of it, I thought there was actually also a deliberate effort to eradicate the vectors as well.
Yes, there was.
Maybe you want to speak to that as well, in terms of is that an active? I mean, it's obviously, I'm not sure it was done in the past, but is it something that we have to sort of do over time if in fact a vector has been identified somewhere or in a particular river,
Yes, so the eradication process or the treatment for the disease was three-pronged, which included the use of medications, the use of another snail. So The environmental health, I can't speak off the top of my head.
I mean, this
but
was before your time
yes.
completely, of course.
So yes, that was definitely used, and they have identified the other snail, which was like a competitor's snail, in certain areas as well during that snail survey. I don't have the exact
So by
figures.
competitor snail, you're saying that is it another vector snail, or is
Yes,
it a snail that,
a snail that was introduced to,
or to limit the population
yes, of that, of the
of the
host,
vector?
yes, of the vector snail. Yeah.
It's almost like a
So that
predator
was
or
used,
something.
yes. So that
Okay.
was used during in the Rockefeller Foundation,
I see.
that project, the Rockefeller project in 1965.
So a matter of good
1981.
snails and bad snails.
Right.
Okay. Very, very, very interesting indeed. And of course, I want to thank the Ministry of Health and the work that is being done in this regard, so that we can declare that St. Lucia is bilharzia free. You're saying that St. Lucia will be the first island to be able to do so, or CARICOM
Yes,
member
within
states
CARICOM, yes.
to be able to do so once that is done. I think this is an initiative that's also happening in other CARICOM states.
At the last, yeah, well, it's something, yes, that I think we are the first ones to initiate it.
Okay.
And yeah, well, obviously other islands will follow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is being funded by any particular?
Yes, of course, it is being funded
agency?
by PAHO, the Pan American Health Organization, and also CDC. Are the ones
Okay.
funding it.
Wonderful indeed. And we've been speaking to the medical surveillance officer within the Department of Health, Dr. Dana Da Costa Gomez. And of course, we want to thank her for the work that she's doing in terms of this national survey on bilharzia. Hopefully, we'll, of course, hear back from you guys to tell us that we're, in fact, are bilharzia free here in St. Lucia.
Yes, of course, we will communicate the results of the once the survey has been done. And well, again, this is just a process in confirming or validating that we have eliminated bilharzia. We still have one other survey, and to show that we haven't had any documented infections for the last 10 years.
Okay, so after this survey, you still have another one, which has to be done within what period of time? How soon?
It can be done concurrently. But,
okay.
As usual, resources.
Okay. So of course, as mentioned, this one targeting primarily children, 2,000 students across the 62 primary schools here in St. Lucia, but as well, you're also going to be looking at the farming community and surveying them as well, the people on the ground as well. So thanks so very much for that, Dr. Da Costa Gomez, for sharing with us the work being done by the ministry in this regard, the bilharzia National Survey here in St. Lucia.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Wonderful. And that's our dish of the day. When we come back, we take in our weather report and then head back to our program.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One test for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need test for your balcony. Come down to Test Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Test Plus. Big test with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+, with all kind of tests. Come down to Test Plus. We also got gas and vanity. Boss, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tests on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Jugosile, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's all, of course, on the 1 point wall. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talamba. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between the east and east-southeast near 14 miles per hour or 22 kilometers per hour. The weather fair to occasionally cloudy with scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. And there is an advisory in here which reads that small craft operators and sea beavers are advised to exercise caution due to locally rough seas. And the forecast for the Lesser Antilles, partly cloudy to occasionally cloudy skies with widely scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. And the tropical weather outlook, moisture and instability associated with a trough system will cause periods of cloudiness with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. Light to moderate easterly and southeasterly winds will continue across the Eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. Also, a tropical wave located over the western tropical Atlantic is moving westward near 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. This wave is expected over the Lesser Antilles on Thursday into Friday. And this was your weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. And of course, what a night it was all over the United States of America. The results, of course, of the poll, the general election for the United States has meant a whitewash for the Republican Party. And they have, in fact, been able to win everything that has been available in terms of the presidency, the control of the Senate, and the control of the House of Representatives. And they have been pretty successful at doing that. It therefore means that Donald Trump is back again, or going to be back again, come January the 20th as the was it the 47th president of the United States of America. And he has been able to do this carrying 27 states with a popular vote for the first time, winning the popular vote. He's competed in this is his third presidential race, and this is in fact the first time that he will be winning the popular vote to do so. He was in fact not able to win the popular vote when he ran against Hillary Clinton back in 2016. He in fact got less than her there, but this time he got 71.8 million Americans coming out to support him, with Kamala Harris, the Democratic hopeful, picking up 66.9 million votes. Pretty sharp difference there in terms of the numbers. Was not as close as many were in fact predicting. At the end of the day, he, in fact, won 51% of the total number of votes cast, with and Kamala Harris getting 47.5% thus far. So very, very interesting situation. The blue wall did not hold for Kamala Harris. And, of course, the issues of Pennsylvania. That had been certainly one of those seats that, one of those states that she had to win, in the opinion of many, and she was not able to pull it off in the at the end of the day. In fact, and the same can be said of other traditional blue states like Michigan and like Wisconsin, even that state, which would have been won by a very tiny margin of about 20,000 odd votes in the last election. He was not able to, in fact, pull that off. And so certainly in the swing states, he has been able to pull off quite a number of them from all indications. And it's something, of course, a matter that is sending shockwaves around the world. He is an individual who perhaps, as I said, has been one of the most controversial presidents ever. And he is back. And what a comeback he has been able to pull away with at this time. So, of course, as I mentioned, the swing states, Pennsylvania, thus far, he'll be winning it by 50.6%. Still, Michigan, he's got a lead there, 49.8%, with 98.2% of the vote in. And Wisconsin as well, winning those seats. And of course, he was able to pick up much earlier on in the night the seat of North Carolina, as well as the seat of Georgia, and as well in the Sun Belt region into the Southwest, Arizona and Nevada, looking also to be that of Mr. Trump. Thus far, it appears that he has been able to take away, officially, not officially, but he is pretty much been allotted 277 of the electoral votes thus far, 224 to Harris, and there's still some still to be confirmed, still to be decided upon. That is what it looks like. And of course, there was a speech given very late last night, early this morning, I should say, perhaps, by Mr. Trump. And of course, wasn't too visceral at all in terms of his statements. It must have been, as some said, it was a happy Trump in terms of his statements last night. Of course, the big question is, what will this mean in terms of policies moving forward, and what were the errors made by the campaign team of Kamala Harris? Of course, she came into the race pretty late. Was it an issue of Joe Biden staying on too long and not giving up early enough? Who were the individuals who decided to swing? And a very interesting breakdown of the support as well by the breakdown of the population. Well, if you look at it by race and by gender, the breakdown is as follows. In the United States, 34% of the population are white men. So effectively over a third of the population are white men. And of that 34%, those white men, 59% voted for Trump and 39% voted for Harris. So, of course, you could see in that demographic, Trump won. White women, well, it was a little closer, 47% voting for Harris and 52%, the majority still voting for Trump. And you recall that, I wouldn't say recall, but white women make up an even larger proportion of that total population. They make up about 37% of the American population. And she was not able to completely win that demographic. She came, relatively close, 47%, but still certainly not sufficient. In the category of Black men, which make up about 5% of the U.S. population, Harris was able to pull through 78% of that demographic, and 20% of them voted for Trump. Black women was, in fact, the demographic she was able to perform best in, and 92% of Black women voted for Harris. 7% voted for Trump. And that category of Black women makes up about 7% of the total voting population of the voter population in the last night's election, yesterday's election. Then you can look to Latino men and Latino women. And this was another very interesting outcome of this election, where the Hispanic vote ended up being. It is not a purely homogenous group in terms of the areas of support. Of course, within that mix, you do have some groups that are more aligned to one party or the other, and those include the Cuban population in particular, largely centered in Miami, centered in South Florida, and they tend to be more Republican. But as well, there's been a growing number of immigrants coming out of Venezuela, the wealthier Venezuelan population, and they tend to be more Republican as well. That has, in fact, been one of the reasons why the state of Florida has tipped more towards the Republican Party. But so in that mix of Hispanics, also a very large population coming out of Mexico, as well as the rest of Latin America. But certainly, very interestingly enough, Donald Trump was able to win the majority of support in Latino men. And Latino men make up 6% of the total population in the United States of America, and that voter population, those who went out to cast their ballots. And of that number, he was able to win a majority, 54% of Hispanic men. And as well, in Hispanic women, you would have also thought that Kamala Harris would have pulled up a significant number there. But in fact, she was able to get 61% of Hispanic women, still not quite where she was with respect to Black women, and 37% of Hispanic women voted for Trump. And in terms of all other races, so of course you'd be looking at Asian Americans, South Asian Americans, Southeast Asian Americans. So that would be inclusive of the Indian vote, for example, which we spoke about yesterday. But as well, Chinese, Native Americans. That was interesting too, because she did win the majority, but just barely, really, 50% of those other races, which made up about 6% of that population. She was able to win half of it. He was still able to win 45% of that demographic. So pretty telling in that regard, given the fact that we saw some of the issues that were being raised by Donald Trump himself, right? And the two major ones, that of immigration / border security, as well as the economy. And the idea of immigration, of course, talking about mass deportation and getting out individuals, and talking about all the criminals that are coming over the border. And that narrative, in fact, sank in to a number of demographics, and interesting enough, even perhaps the Latino demographic. So, in as much as we're seeing him coming out and winning the male Latino vote, and when you think about it, then he's also, that immigration issue that he's raising is largely that of that Hispanic immigration coming across the border, coming across the Mexican border, coming in from Central America and South America. Those are the individuals that he's referring to in the main, not the only ones, but it's interesting that the Hispanic Latino vote, in fact, went uh, in totality to Trump, and that male Hispanic vote. Very, very interesting state of play indeed in terms of the outcome of that presidential election. But it was not just in the traditional states where he was expected to win that he actually performed well. And we're seeing even in places like New Jersey, a state that's been blue from for a very, very, very long time, and there too, the race wasn't a complete um, runaway for Kamala Harris. She only won by 51.2%, and so even there, Trump was able to pull in 46.9% of the vote in a state like New Jersey. In New York, a little bit less for him, 44.2%, to Harris's 56% roughly. But still very telling that Trump was able to make inroads in even those more traditional um, blue states across the United States. And of course, it's showing in his ability to pull home the popular vote by nearly 5 million or so more votes than Kamala Harris. So certainly a very, very interesting outcome with respect to that general election, which has been held. As I mentioned as well, it's not just in the matter of the presidential race, but also in the United States Senate. Thus far, in the Senate, the Republicans, in fact, have maintained their majority of, and they would be bringing in 52 seats. They will be maintaining 52 seats in the House. There were 34 seats which were in fact up for election out of the 100 seats within the Senate. They use that every 2 years. About a third of the seats or so gets elected. And of that meant that effectively they were able to actually inch a little bit more, I think, upwards to maintain the control of the Senate. And the same can be said in the House as well. They, in fact, are able to maintain a majority there. They were all up for election, and there's still some seats to be determined of the 435 seats, but they are in fact expected to effectively maintain that majority in the House as well. So, of course, there's lots of analysis as to where to next and what were the impacts and what caused for the support to shift towards Trump. One of them was of a lot of interest being paid, of course, and he was even given an honorable mention by Mr. Trump in his speech last night, that of Elon Musk, one of the world's wealthiest men, South African born entrepreneur and multi-billionaire. And I think we do actually have a piece from him. And let's see if we can actually pull that up. It's the fourth one back, actually, I think it is. If we... And yep, that's it. And I think it's a little, let's see, is it 9 minutes long? Yeah, it's a little long, but we'll see if we can take up just a little bit of it first before we end.
Former President Donald Trump's. In the final weeks of the presidential election, Elon Musk has become one of former President Donald Trump's most powerful.
And that, of course, just gives you a snippet of some of the behind the scenes and, of course, the motivations regarding some of the support that we're seeing coming out of certain capitalists within the American sphere. Of course, the stock market, as you heard, is up as a result of the Trump Republican victory last night. And we'll have to be doing a lot more unpacking on the US election as the week goes by. But of course, we're already out of time here at the lunchroom. We do hope that you stay safe, and we'll be back again tomorrow, God willing, for another program. Take care. Goodbye.